Distributed Denial may be Zane's coolest, weirdest, and also most disappointing skill. It has barely any use cases and very few shield effects actually work, and of those that do, a huge majority of them kind of suck. I'm not going to be going over every single shield effect in this video, but if you are interested in that, I do have an entire video about the more in-depth details of Distributed Denial, and that should be popping up in the corner now and will also be linked down in the description below. What this video is about is an interaction that I discovered with this skill the other day on stream. Wait, am I? Oh my god, I'm an idiot. I don't have it. Wow, I'm fucking out of it. I straight up just don't have Distributed Denial active yet. That I find to be really fucking cool, but also makes this still even more disappointing. And that is shield merging. Simply, what this interaction is when you throw out your barrier and after it summons, the shield effect that it has is locked in, and Zane can freely swap out of his currently equipped shield to something synergistic without interfering with the effect currently on the barrier. For example, and specifically what I was kind of trying to make something out of, if you put on something with a damaging effect like the Whiskey Tango Foxtrot or the Void Rift, you can swap onto a Revolter to add that 200% global elemental shock damage while holding a Guardian Angel to get some pretty crazy damage numbers out of it. But unfortunately, both those examples have a major problem. The Void Rift was by far the most effective shield that I tested with this interaction. It has projectiles that summon upon the barrier taking damage that will home in on nearby enemies. The first major issue though, and the one that probably many of you already know, is that the Void Rift and Impaler projectiles summon out of the base of the barrier. This isn't a problem when the barrier is placed down on a surface, but when Zane actually picks his barrier up, that base is technically under his feet and inside the ground, meaning that to get these projectiles to not impact and disappear immediately, you have to pretty much be constantly jumping. This isn't a huge deal and you can kind of play around it, but it's definitely a big point against it. Though on top of that, these projectiles just kind of suck. They do decent damage, but they're incredibly inconsistent as they home in very slowly and have the turning radius of your mother. Along with that, they have pretty much no pathfinding and will try to just go for a straight shot towards enemies, meaning that if they're hiding behind cover and shooting you, it's just going to impact that cover and not actually hit the enemy. In short, these projectiles suck big dirty toes sloppy style. The Whiskey Tango is another good damage option, but it has the same problem that this shield has always had, being that you instantly down yourself if you get hit by them. With a Revolter swap, you can output some pretty good damage with it, but it does kind of just make it more of a death sentence if you accidentally walk into one or an enemy decides to come motorboat your supple Irish breasts. We'll come back to this shield though a little bit later, as it does have a bit of a usable interaction. I did also attempt to use the Rico to reflect shots, but unfortunately enemies do not deal a whole lot of damage to themselves. I was hoping that maybe once it reflected off barrier that it would actually be converted into action store damage and receive some sort of scaling or something, but unfortunately it doesn't. So even with throwing on as many bonus elements as possible and with a Guardian Angel, it still wasn't doing any worthwhile damage. There was probably potential here if this was back when enemies spawned with Mayhem 10 weapons in their hands, but as of the modern day, Reflect kinda stinks. And finally, I also had no luck with the damaging auras from the Red Suit and the Ember's Blaze, as they really just don't tick fast enough to deal really sustainable damage, along with them just being too small to really make effective use of. But those are just of the shields that work. There's actually two shields that would theoretically be incredibly fucking good with this, but neither of them function at all with barrier. And this is where my disappointment comes in. The first is the Messy Breakup, where if it worked, presumably it should just provide you a drone while your barrier is active. This drone already does decent damage on its own and could have been really nice to have alongside just a generic build as additional damage, especially with that Revolter on top of it. But second, and the one that potentially could have made Distributed Denial legitimately good and maybe even an option to entirely build around, the Faulty Star. This shield solves all the problems that the shields that do work have. The Faulty Star summons a Nova directly on top of the enemies that shoot you. This means the damage dealt back to your attacker would be completely unable to miss. If an enemy shoots you, they would be taking damage no matter what. No slow projectiles, no shitty pathfinding, it's dealing good damage that can scale even better than the other options. Slap a Revolter on top of that and it's a death sentence for anything that dares to fire their gun at you. Not only would you be giving an additional 200% damage to a Faulty Star, but because it's on your barrier, you're not taking that damage as you usually would with the Faulty star, meaning that there's no health cost here, and as long as your barrier is active, you would be frying enemies constantly. Now, as I did allude to earlier, there is a combo that does make use of this interaction with the Whiskey Tango, and that's a Shock Whiskey Tango and a Transformer. As I said, the biggest problem with the Whiskey Tango is that it constantly kills you. Well, with it on your barrier and a Transformer on your body, now it's going to actually be healing you. Granted, it means you can't use any sort of bonus elemental damage, as elemental ASEs will apply to it and instantly down you still. While this is probably an incredibly niche form of survivability, it is still an option that I haven't really seen before, probably for good reason, and it does make use of this shield merge effect. But it's kind of the only thing I can think of that makes use of it in a way that could somewhat matter, yet it's still very restrictive and incredibly inconsistent. But yeah, sadly that's kind of it. There's a really cool interaction here that's sort of held back just because the shield effects that would make it awesome just do not work with distributed denial. I'm probably not the first to discover this or anything, but I wanted to show it off as it is an interaction that's definitely new to me, and I assume it's going to be new to some other people. I really wish I could say there was anything useful that could be done here beyond just turning the Whiskey Tango into a somewhat inconsistent health pack, but due to distributed denial being a janky piece of shit, that's not the case. Maybe if we get a final patch one day, it can be touched up, but who the fuck am I kidding? The only way this still is ever getting fixed is if someone cares enough about it to patch it with a mod, assuming that's even possible. And if you would like to watch the entire stream VOD of me messing around with this skill and learning about this, it will be linked down in the description below as well. But that is going to do it for this one, fellas. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, definitely consider leaving a like, comment, subscribe, all of that. I will be live right after this video goes up right here on YouTube and also over on my Twitch channel, where there will be a link to down in the description below, and just under that is a link to my Discord server where you can come and join and hang out. But with that all being said, I hope to see you guys in the next one.